It started as an ordinary afternoon in a quiet suburban neighborhood. 8-year-old Lily was walking home from school, her backpack bouncing lightly with each step. She took the same route every day, a short walk past friendly neighbors, picket fences, and the scent of fresh-cut grass. But today, something was different. Unbeknownst to her, 3 police officers in an unmarked car were trailing behind. They weren't there by coincidence. They had been watching her for a reason, one they weren't ready to share just yet. From a distance, they observed her tiny frame moving along the sidewalk, her pigtails swaying in the breeze. She had no idea they were there. As she turned onto her street, the officers exchanged glances. One of them reached for his radio, but hesitated. Something was about to happen. They could feel it. A few more steps, and she would reach her front door. Would they step in before it was too late? Just as Lily lifted her hand to the doorknob, something made her freeze. A sound. A movement. Her heart skipped a beat. And in the next 5 minutes, something so unexpected unfolded that it left the entire neighborhood stunned. What did the officers know that Lily didn't? And why were they following her in the first place? Stay with me, because what happens next will shock you. Lily's hand hovered over the doorknob, her small fingers trembling slightly. The sound she heard wasn't familiar. Something rustling, a faint but sharp noise, just beyond her front porch. She glanced over her shoulder, her young mind trying to make sense of the unease creeping up her spine. Inside the unmarked car, the 3 officers tensed. They watched closely, their hands resting near their radios. Officer Grant, the most experienced of the 3, felt his gut tighten. "Something's not right," he muttered under his breath. His partner, Officer Davis, nodded, gripping the door handle, ready to move. Lily took a hesitant step back, her heart pounding in her chest. The house looked the same as always. The familiar flower pots on the porch, her mom's wind chime swaying gently in the breeze. But something felt off. She wasn't sure why. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw it, a shadow shifting near the side of the house. It was quick, almost too quick to notice, but it was there. Her breath hitched. Was someone there? The officers saw it too. Grant's voice was firm but quiet. "We move now." Without hesitation, they stepped out of the car, their presence finally known. Lily turned at the sound of their footsteps, confusion flashing across her young face. "Sweetheart, step away from the door," Officer Davis said gently, raising a calming hand. Lily hesitated, looking between the officers and her front door. She didn't understand. Were they here for her? For her family? And then, another noise, louder this time, coming from inside the house. The officers exchanged glances. They knew they had only seconds to act. Lily's fingers curled into the straps of her backpack as she took a small step away from the door, her heart pounding. The sound from inside the house wasn't just a random creak. It was deliberate, like someone moving. She looked at the officers, confusion clouding her innocent eyes. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Officer Grant crouched slightly, trying to keep his voice calm. "Lily, is anyone home right now?" She shook her head. "No, my mom's still at work. She doesn't come home until later." The officers exchanged a look. That meant whoever was inside wasn't supposed to be there. Officer Davis pulled out his radio, speaking in a low but urgent voice. "Possible break-in. Suspect may still be inside. Requesting backup." Lily's breathing quickened as realization set in. "There's someone in my house." Before anyone could answer, another noise came from inside. This time, it was closer. A shuffle. A soft thud. Whoever it was, they were moving toward the front of the house. The officers stepped forward, positioning themselves between Lily and the door. Officer Grant reached for the doorknob, testing it gently. It was unlocked. His jaw tightened. "Stay back," he instructed, his voice barely above a whisper. Lily's eyes darted between the officers and the door, her mind racing. Had she forgotten to lock it that morning? Or had someone else opened it? A sudden chill ran down her spine. And then, silence. Too much silence. The officers held their breath, listening. Every second stretched longer than the last. And then, just as Grant started to push the door open, something inside made a sound that sent a jolt of fear through them all. A voice, low, urgent, from the darkness beyond the door. "Don't come in." The words echoed through the doorway, chilling and deliberate. "Don't come in." Officer Grant froze, his grip tightening on the doorknob. His pulse quickened. The voice wasn't yelling, wasn't threatening, it was a warning. But from who? And why? Lily's breath hitched as she took another step back, gripping her backpack like it was the only thing keeping her steady. The officers exchanged glances, their instincts on high alert. "Who's in there?" Grant called out, his voice firm but controlled. No answer. Davis edged closer, his hand hovering near his holster. He spoke low, only for Grant and their third partner, Officer Reed, to hear. "This doesn't feel like a normal break-in." Inside the house, another noise. A chair scraping against the floor, followed by hurried footsteps. Someone was moving fast, trying to make a decision. "Lily, stay right here," Grant said, glancing at her before pushing the door open just an inch. The dimly lit hallway inside stretched ahead, eerily quiet now. Nothing out of place. No immediate sign of the person who had spoken. And then movement. A shadow darting past the hallway. Too fast to make out. "Stop," Davis shouted, throwing the door open. The officers stepped inside, eyes scanning every corner. The air was thick with tension. Something was wrong. Lily stood frozen outside, fear tightening in her chest. She didn't understand what was happening, but she knew one thing: something wasn't right in her home. Then, from deep inside the house, a voice, different from the first. A whisper, shaky, almost desperate. "Help me." And that was when everything changed. The fragile whisper sent a shiver through the room. "Help me." Officer Grant's head snapped toward the sound. It wasn't coming from the shadow that had just darted down the hall. It was deeper inside the house. Someone else was there. Someone who needed help. Davis motioned for Reed to move toward the hallway, while he and Grant stepped cautiously toward the source of the voice. Every step felt heavier, the air thick with something unspoken. "Lily, stay outside," Grant ordered again, his tone leaving no room for argument. But Lily barely heard him. Her mind raced, her hands gripping her backpack straps so tightly her knuckles turned white. That voice, it wasn't one she recognized. But why did it sound scared? Inside, the officers scanned the living room. Everything looked normal. Too normal. No sign of a struggle, no mess, nothing to suggest a break-in. But then Davis noticed something. The hallway closet door, slightly ajar, just enough to show a sliver of darkness inside. Grant reached out and with a steady hand pulled the door open. A woman, huddled in the small space, arms wrapped around herself, eyes wide with terror. She looked up at them, her breath uneven. "Please," she whispered again. "He's still here." The words barely had time to settle before a loud crash erupted from the back of the house. Reed's voice rang out. "I've got movement." The officers spun toward the noise, adrenaline surging. Whoever had been watching, hiding, waiting, they weren't running anymore. They were making their move. A loud crash shook the house. Officer Reed's voice rang out again, urgency in every word. "He's moving toward the back." Grant and Davis sprang into action, their footsteps pounding against the hardwood floor. The woman in the closet gasped, clutching her knees. "Don't let him get away," she pleaded. Lily, still frozen outside, watched as everything unfolded. She wanted to run, wanted to scream, but her body wouldn't move. Her house, her safe place, had become something unrecognizable. In the hallway, Grant caught a glimpse of movement. A shadow slipping through the back door, vanishing into the evening light. "He's running," Grant shouted. Davis bolted after him, but as he reached the door, he stopped. Something on the floor caught his attention. A cell phone. The screen was cracked, the battery nearly dead, but a single text was still visible. Asterisk asterisk, it's not him, you should be afraid of, asterisk asterisk. Davis's stomach dropped. Wait. But before he could finish, a voice came from behind. Drop it. Grant and Reese spun around. The woman, the one they had just rescued, was no longer cowering in fear. She stood at the hallway entrance, her hands trembling, but not in fear. In control. She was holding a small, concealed object. Lily, still outside, saw the officers tense. Something was wrong, very wrong. Ma'am, Grant said carefully, who are you afraid of? The woman swallowed hard, her eyes flickering toward the back door. Silence filled the house, thick and suffocating. The woman's words hung in the air like a secret finally exposed. Asterisk asterisk, he wasn't the intruder. I was. Asterisk asterisk. Grant's grip tightened. Start talking, now. The woman's eyes darted toward the open back door, then back to the officers. She exhaled shakily. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was just looking for something that belongs to me. Davis exchanged a glance with Reed. What were you looking for? Her voice wavered. A photo. From a long time ago. Everything slowed. Lily, still standing just outside, clutched her chest. A photo. Of what? Grant's mind raced, piecing things together. This wasn't a random break-in, it was personal. You knew the person who lived here before, didn't you? Tears welled in her eyes. Yes, I used to live here, she admitted. Years ago, before Lily's family moved in. Her voice broke. I left something behind, a picture of my son. He's gone now. I just wanted one last piece of him. The officers stood still, processing her words. She hadn't meant harm. She wasn't dangerous, just broken, lost in memories that wouldn't let go. From behind them, a small voice spoke. You could have just asked. Lily. The woman turned, stunned by the kindness in her voice. Lily took a cautious step forward. If it's that important, we can find it together. The officers exhaled, the tension finally breaking. The danger was gone. No criminals, no threats, just a grieving mother and a little girl with a heart too big for fear. Davis sighed, lowering his stance. Let's start looking. And just like that, the night ended, not with sirens or arrests, but with quiet understanding.